Now, if you own a Land Rover or Range Rover, and if you're tired of feeling like you're paying a premium just because you own one of these, then stop what you're doing right now and pay attention. Our next guest is Brian Thornhill with British 4x4 of Reno. And for a Land Rover, Range Rover owner, the only choice that we support in Northern Nevada. Please welcome Brian Thornhill with the British 4x4 of Reno. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mitch.
Tell us a little bit about your background in Land Rover. And I just shared, if you own one of these, this is the only place to go. And we sincerely mean that. And I want our community to have some idea of your background in Land Rover repair.
I started as a Land Rover technician back in '99. I achieved the status of a certified Land Rover mechanic in 2001. I worked for a franchise dealer for 7 years, left there, and went to work for a private Land Rover collector for 5 years doing...
This part fascinated me. Tell us what you did there, because it was really, you've done some very extraordinary, off the normal radar Land Rover stuff.
Correct. In that 5-year period, we did several frame-off restorations, conversions of computerized newer vehicles from gas automatic transmission setups to European spec diesel conversions. The one in particular is the only one known of in the U.S. So a lot of custom, a lot of neat different products in the Land Rover line.
Well, and I wanted to touch on that because it's not just service and maintenance that you offer here. You do offer custom work for people that really want to set something up for specific use. Correct.
You have a lot of shops out there that will do lifts and brush guards and winch attachments for Jeeps and your other vehicles, but nobody necessarily understands or specializes in the fitment of lift kits or winches, brush guards, exterior accessories, or custom work for a Land Rover vehicle.
Well, the suspensions on them are far more complex, and having the right shop provide these is their safety. So very well put there. And let's talk about your shop background and when you opened British 4x4 Reno, where it got its start.
We opened the shop in 2009 under the name Land Rover Specialties. We have since changed the name to British 4x4 of Reno to help eliminate any confusion that we may or be involved with Land Rover. We are not. We are an independent. We do have a strong passion for the Land Rover vehicles and try to extend that in our service and in our customer service and loyalty.
Well, and the original name really did emphasize that. That's specialties, that's what you specialize in. You live and breathe it and are absolutely one of a kind. And Northern Nevada is very fortunate to have you in that. And anybody with a Land Rover will probably understand why I say that. And I own one, as you know as well. A part of it is that you're set up for these too, because of your background and knowledge and training in the dealership level. You're completely equipped as a shop to repair and service even the more modern vehicles and all the computer technologies. Tell us a little bit about that, if you will.
Correct. As Land Rover owners, everybody has been to the shop that says, they can't reset a air suspension light or a ABS light because they don't have the Land Rover computer. We did purchase a Land Rover genuine computer so that we have access to air suspension repairs, anti-lock brake repairs, correct diagnosis and repair of check engine lights, all of which are major components that require special knowledge and special equipment in order to handle properly.
Well, and one of the other things that a lot of cut-rate shops will do out there is use inferior parts in their repairs to help keep their price down or their profits greater, and you won't do that. Tell us a little bit about your part selection process.
No, I won't. Genuine or OE manufacturer, in other words, the manufacturers that build the parts for the manufacturer, those are the components we use. We provide a 12-month, 12,000-mile warranty, the same as you're going to receive in any franchise dealer. We stand behind that warranty. If for some reason you have a part fail in that period of time, we're going to cover that, parts and labor. with no questions asked.
Well, and here's why you can offer that. When you're committed to doing it right the first time, using the right parts, the failure rate is almost non-existent. So you have no problem taking care of the customer when that should occur. And it's going to. It's just so minimal that you're not afraid to do that. And I wanted our community to hear between the lines on that subject, because it's a really big item when a shop, an independent shop like yours, will actually stand behind their work. It means that they're really not failing on a regular basis, so they couldn't afford to do that. Let's talk about some of the most typical concerns that a Land Rover owner would have, and there's going to be a lot of people right now that go, oh yeah, I've had that one. So tell us some of the typical things that you work on that you're really the expert of in this community.
Air suspension issues would probably be number one in the Land Rover line. There are a lot of other places around the country that will attempt to work on air suspension. The air suspension systems on these vehicles are very proprietary. They have very proprietary diagnostic systems, and you really need to understand the background to how the system is built and how the system operates in order to properly diagnose the system. You can throw a lot of very expensive parts in an air suspension system in a big hurry without knowing the actual cause or having an understanding of what it takes to fix that issue.
Well, and I don't know I've ever shared this with you, but I've had that personal experience, and it took, under warranty, 6 repair visits originally to get my suspension right, and it's been perfect since, but that I kept getting it back and it wasn't right, and more parts were thrown at it, and I wish that you were there at that time. I would have been saved countless loss of use of the vehicle and aggravation going back and forth. And tell us about some of the other main issues with these.
Check engine lights. Everybody has had them. There are the engine management systems in these vehicles are very complex. They take lots of years of experience and training and understanding of what a computer says. Just because you go to your local parts store and they read the code for you and tell you what it says does not necessarily mean that what that code says is actually what is wrong with the vehicle. We have lots of issues with oxygen sensors and shops that replace oxygen sensors when it's actually a vacuum leak causing the oxygen sensor to actually read incorrectly. So there's lots of engine management issues that experience and knowledge really take a strong hold to.
Well, and there's let's get to the cooling systems next. Those are very common on these as well.
Correct. You have an aluminum engine with aluminum components. Overheating these engines can be devastating and expensive. We find a lot of locations where somebody has made a quick, inadequate repair to a cooling system, causing a failure of a hose or loss of coolant, and it only takes one time of overheating an aluminum engine dramatically before you're talking about a new engine, which is not very cheap.
Well, and I'd like to touch on, if you don't mind, the services you offer and the price savings, because here's what you offer is the knowledge, the background, the expertise, top in our community. And if you haven't been servicing with British 4x4 of Reno, definitely you have to go give that a try, because you'll immediately understand why we've waited, actually, invited and waited patiently to have Brian on our show. But tell us a little bit about the labor rate, the savings there, as well as, so for an example, your oil change special that you offer.
Our labor rate is $90 an hour. We typically, on an oil change, we barely cover expenses. I want people to feel comfortable having services done with us, because the ultimate key to having somebody who understands your vehicle do a service rather than your chain stores is that we know what we're looking for. I can look at brakes and say, you're going to look at brakes in the next 30 to 60 days. With a Land Rover, that's important because we replace pads and rotors every time we do a brake job. So for you to be able to save that money and know that, hey, in 30 to 60 days, I need to come up with X dollars in order to be able to do a brake job, that's important.
Well, and let's talk about the brake jobs, because how many times have you had or have any of our listeners had a cheap brake job done?
And they squeak, they're horrible, you're irritated all the time, and that is because people are using inexpensive brake pad material. Inexpensive brake pad material is full of metallic substances to make up the difference, since we have gone away from asbestos. And there are only 2 or 3 brake pad manufacturers out there that I will use in order to give the best level of braking with the most minimal brake dust built up on your wheels and to minimize the squeaking at all possible.
Well, in the beginning, I introduced the fact that you do more than just service and maintenance and repair, because you do some custom work as well. But you also, if it has anything, I understand this, so expand on this if you will. If it has anything to do with the Land Rover, you do it. So what can they bring a vehicle to you for?
Anything. We work with several other shops in this area that carry our same level of customer satisfaction and the same level of integrity. If you need windshield, paint work, tire work, alignments, anything of that nature, if it's Land Rover related, bring it to us. We either do it or have other shops that we use that carry our same level of integrity to handle that type of work.
Well, I love that convenience factor, because the customer brings it to you, and then you do the back and forth, but you also get to examine it and make sure that when it leaves there, it's to your quality standards. And then you offer some shuttle services as well. So
correct. You drop off your vehicle. We have a night drop box at the front door. Otherwise, we can take you home, take you to the airport. It's not uncommon for us to have customers make week-long appointments while they're out of town. We re-deliver those vehicles to the airport so that when you get off the airplane at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, you can walk right out to the parking garage and get into your own personal vehicle and not a cab, go home, and be confident in the fact that your vehicle has been taken care of and that your service and repair have been done adequately. That
is a whole new level of commitment to a community and to a customer's needs. It's extraordinary. How do they get a hold of you?
Our phone number is 358-2003. The website is British4x4ofreno.com. You can also get me via email at brian@British4x4ofreno.com.
That's Brian Thornhill, owner of British 4x4 of Reno, and absolutely the finest Land Rover, Range Rover repair shop possibly in our nation. I really say that with the greatest level of confidence. If you haven't used them, give them a call. You'll be glad you did.